So I'd just like to share with you an excellent game called Bear Attack. Now this is a cool game that one of my students has created, and it's all about how your body will balance things out for homeostasis. So gas exchange, we're looking at CO2 and O2, and we're looking at the blood glucose and how that's controlled by hormones. So let's start off. Bear Attack, the game. So go to the lungs. So we're starting in the heart in this game. I arrive at the lungs, I pick up some O2, some oxygen. So the stuff that's in the blood travels down past the pancreas. The pancreas is this little hormone detector basically, checking the blood glucose levels. So blood goes through the pancreas, and let's just, wait a minute, let's think, right, so that blood in our model, in our example, in our little game, has got no blood glucose in it. So we're going to have something called glucagon as our hormone that's released by the pancreas. So we need to release some glucose from where it is stored in our body. Now we'll come back to this Mars bar idea in a minute. So now we're up in the liver. Now the liver is a really important organ. It stores a lot of the glucose that we get from our food as glycogen. Okay, so the glucagon, which is the hormone, gets this glycogen, which is a long chain glucose, to break up. Okay, so it now breaks up into small pieces that can dissolve into the blood and therefore be carried around the bloodstream. So we get to the muscle, whether we're having a scrap with a bear or just moving around generally through respiration, we're going to use up some of that glucose and we're going to use up some of that oxygen. And that gets used up in respiration. So if carbohydrate and oxygen are your reactants, the products formed are carbon dioxide and water. So the carbon dioxide is a bit of an issue. So I've got to get that to the lungs. We know the lungs is where the gas exchange occurs. So now I've got the CO2 is gone out of my lungs and I've collected more O2 back to the heart, back to the pancreas again. So I got a bit of blood glucose, that red one, but not much. So I need to send a chemical message to my liver to say we need to release some more glucose into the blood. But wait a minute, before I get there, maybe I just have 3 Mars bars, a load of glucose, a massive amount. So I get lots of glucose from my food or small intestines, and then I get to my liver. So now I've got this strange situation where I've got loads and loads of blood glucose, and I might actually store some. So I need to store a little bit, but I've got this chemical message saying release some. So it's a bit of a strange thing that we're trying to push our body through. This is why we try and advise people to cut down on the sugary foods. It messes up your insides a little bit in terms of how quickly you can react to things. So again, we got this respiration happening. Not too much, not too heavy today, but we're producing that CO2. A little bit of O2 coming out, a little bit of glucose being used up, CO2 being produced as a waste product. We get rid of that out of the lungs via the heart. So we get the gas exchange occurring again, a bit more oxygen. So now our blood is pretty much where we want it to be and where it is most of the time in our everyday lives. Lots of oxygen, plenty of glucose, nothing really needing to be stored, just being used up for normal operation, basic metabolic rate. Now this one here, we're thinking, well, maybe I could store some of that glucose because I'm not really doing much. So I go down and it's flowing. Now I got this blue stuff is insulin. Now the insulin is telling my body, and my liver specifically, the target organ, to store some glucose. Now it's going to store this in long chains called glycogen. Okay, so some of those red bits come out of my blood and they get stored in the liver, stacked almost in these long chains for when I need them. Yeah, it's a good thing for your body to do, an adaptation. But wait a minute, here comes the bear attack. So I got this thing now called the adrenaline response. I get an adrenal gland to produce this hormone, which is a chemical message to my body to say fight or flight. We got to get out of this situation by killing the bear or by escaping. So we've got a lot of respiration happening now. So a lot of glucose is being used up, a lot of oxygen is being used up. We're probably going to be escaping as fast as we can from a bear. So there's quite a lot of change going on. A lot of CO2 being produced. So our heart rate is going to increase and our breathing rate is going to increase. Now when you get to the heart, adrenaline, these white pieces, that's a hormone that's telling your heart to increase the beats per minute. So we know that this whole process that we've been looking at before is now going to speed up. Okay, we're going to have a higher exchange rate in the lungs because our breathing has become deeper and more frequent. We're going to have a higher frequency of heartbeats, which is going to push everything around the body more quickly. So when we do have this bear attack, our body has to respond by having chemical messages and also gas exchange at the lungs and this push from the heart that keeps everything moving. Hope that explains some of the stuff that you may or may not be learning about. And if you like this video, press like. If you want to make a comment, make a comment. Otherwise, keep learning, stay in school or home learning at least, and do your best. Ask me questions, I'll try and answer them. Goodbye.